Yeah, interesting weekend in League One. 7 of the top 10 teams winning. I think that's always a bit of fun when you get towards the end of the campaign and the teams gunning for promotion are setting a swift pace. Perhaps none more so than our league leaders, George, pulling away every single match day, it seems. Birmingham beating Charlton 1-0.
Yeah, that's 4 wins on the bounce now, 3 consecutive home games where they've won to 0, and they were impressive again. I mean, the moment came, the match-winning moment was one of the goals of the day from Jay Stansfield, persistent on the right-hand side. It was kind of like I was going to say something that I'd get pelters for it. It was like a mirror image, but not quite as good as Ryan Giggs' goal in the FA Cup against Arsenal, where kind of running down the right-hand side, you hate it, and then rifling into the roof of the net, although from a bit further out.
That's the worst thing I've ever heard.
I was going to call it one from... No, I won't say it. But in terms of the persistence, I mean, basically defenders backing off, there's no real defenders that he has to beat in order to do so. It's not like he takes on players, just drives the defence. I mean, it's a brilliant finish from a quality player. But it all came after one of the weirdest moments of the weekend with Maynard Brewer. I mean, he's kind of trying to shepherd the ball out of play, but the ball's outside the box. And rather than just he could just boot it. He could literally just kick it for a corner or just wrap his left foot around it and kick it for a throw-in. He just decides to fall on the ball outside the box, right in front of the Birmingham fans.
It is outside as well, isn't it?
It's miles outside. There's none of that. Like, you're not sending me a video of a ball over the top of the line and give me a bird's eye view and show me it's actually over. Like, this is outside of the box. Yeah. And he knew it was outside of the box. And, I mean, given how rattled fans get when a player puts a ball on the edge of a corner quadrant, I cannot imagine what those fans felt sitting behind the goal, seeing a keeper picking the ball up outside the box. Either way, the referee didn't see it, the linesman didn't see it, and nothing happened. And it didn't really matter. I mean, Birmingham had opportunities in this game to win it by or to go further ahead after the Stansfield goal. But credit to Charlton as well in this game, because we've seen a lot of teams go to St Andrews and kind of either be unable to force their way into the game or come with every intention of trying to sit deep and just stifle Birmingham without offering any attacking threat. And that wasn't the case with Charlton. They committed men forward. They went after Birmingham. It was a pretty feisty affair. I think there were 9 yellow cards in the game. And they had opportunities late on, Liban especially with a header that just went wide of the post. So I think from Nathan Jones, he kind of got it right in terms of going after Birmingham rather than kind of letting them play their own game. But Birmingham, again, just proving themselves so strong at home. And, even a really good display from one of the inform League One sides, and they still weren't able to take anything off them, albeit it was a moment of pure quality from Stansfield in order to get the decisive goal.
Yeah, I mean, Charlton probably the team that have played the best against Birmingham this season, obviously beating them at the Valley. One of the only games where Birmingham haven't been the better side, the dominant side in certain ways. Obviously, wild things, Shrewsbury spring to mind as well. But a great win for Birmingham. I just love how Stansfield's really good at pressing and he's really good at shooting the ball really hard into the goal. And he just showed that. The perfect epitome of the two things that I think Jay Stansfield does exceptionally well in that goal. Wycombe drew 1-1 with Crawley. It's only 2 wins in their last 7. They've still got a 2-point gap between themselves and third place, but it does feel like they're leaking a little bit, Wycombe. It doesn't help that Kone's injured. It was kind of bizarre incident looking back where in the game against Barnsley, he got fouled on the touchline by Mark Roberts, who got sent off for the tackle. Excessive force vibe. And Kone played on and then headed home the winner in injury time and then has been injured ever since. And I believe it was from that tackle where the injury was sustained. So he was obviously able to continue with adrenaline, score the winner, and then, in the midst of all that transfer speculation as well, then gets injured, which only fuels the transfer speculation because people are like, how's he injured? I just saw him scoring the winner in the last game. But the fact that he's still missing games suggests that he very much is, and there isn't much detail about how much longer he'd be out for. It's obviously quite a big deal for Wycombe. Udo did score for them. His replacement up top, nice ball from Skura. That was the equaliser. One of the goals of the weekend was scored by Crawley's Will Swan, who won a header from a pass forward into the midfielder breaking forward, who then backheeled it back into his path, and just the perfect outside of the right foot shot. Just such sumptuous technique. And I always think, particularly when the ball was being rolled across you, it's not stationary. Like, we could all try and hit like an outside of a right foot shot from the right hand side, trying to curl it into the far corner. And with a stationary ball, our percentage chance of getting it right is much higher than with a ball running across you from the other side. It just meant the technique was perfect, because that's also one where if you get it wrong, if it hits your big toe rather than the other side of your foot, that's not only going miles wide, it's probably going out for a throw-in. Yeah, and Will Swan found the corner with an absolutely brilliant goal. So spoils shared there between Crawley and Wycombe. There are loads of big games in League One. It's kind of hard to know where to go next. I want to talk about Barnsley 1, Huddersfield 2. It felt big before the game, because this was a team in Barnsley who'd got 1 point from their last 5 games against a team in Huddersfield that had only got 2 points from their previous 5 games. Both of them sliding well away from where they wanted to be. Huddersfield having been looking decent for second spot, and Barnsley looking very comfy inside the playoff places, and all changing really in the last few weeks. Panic stations. John Russell scored for Barnsley to put them ahead against his old club, carrying it 50 yards and then firing it in with the help of a deflection. Dion Charles went through in the first half, and his touch was so poor, and the keeper gathered it. Charles was then hooked at half-time. Not been a great start to his Huddersfield career. Big signing in January, with Joe Taylor having signed in January and almost immediately picked up a hamstring injury. Josh Koroma came on and showed Charles how to do it. Streaking clear 1-on-1, brilliant pass from Sorensen, finished really well. And then the match is won in the spammiest way possible, really. Ben Wiles with a free kick from out wide, curling in, kind of low, skidding through. It was a nice dummy from Marshall, but how it's got all the way through into the corner, I don't really know. And Huddersfield leave with a 2-1 win, which they really need. Barnsley, understandably, kind of furious. Like, they looked kind of bulletproof as recently as 4th of January, when they thrashed Crawley at home. It made it 4 wins in a row, 5 in 6. Literally the reverse since then. 5 defeats in 6 games. Quite difficult to put your finger on it. And they've basically played themselves out of the playoff race, because some of the other teams, Stockport and Orient and Bolton under Schumacher, are picking up points at such a rate. All of a sudden, Barnsley are 7 points off it. And it just seems hard to believe that they could make that up now, unless they crank out like 5 wins in a row at some point. So big game, big win for Huddersfield. Not fully convinced in the performance, but hopefully for them it gives them confidence to attack the next couple of games. Wrexham chugging along nicely, George. They lost that game against Stevenage, didn't they, at home, their first home defeat of the season. Since then they've responded with 2 away wins at Crawley and Northampton. 2-0.
Yeah, 2-0, and yeah, what a way to respond. And this was a really dominant 2-0 win, and it was dominant even after they're 2-0 up. Often away teams, when they go ahead, can kind of take their foot off the gas a bit, but they were the dominant force throughout this. The opening goal was quite a weird goal. Keeper clearance. I don't know if it was massively wind assisted, but it basically just flew over everyone's head. And the next touch after the keeper kicked it was Sam Smith just kicking it in the bottom right hand corner inside the box with his left foot for his first goal as a Wrexham player. It's quite weird last week watching him win Goal of the Month when he was a Reading player, and Wrexham kind of tweeting about it and posting pictures of him in his Wrexham gear holding the trophy. I don't know how I feel about that. But it was, and then Rathbone continued his really good scoring form with a nice finish into the bottom left-hand corner shortly afterwards. So 2-0 up, kind of 20 or so minutes in, and they continued to be the dominant side within it, and will feel frustrated they weren't able to get a third goal. Concerns for Cobblers, who are just miles off it here, to second best. Pretty poor defending for both goals, and then unable to find any kind of foothold in the game whatsoever, and they're very much still in this mess towards the bottom end. It feels like Smith is a pretty smart signing for me for Wrexham. And when you look at their attacking talent, Stephen Fletcher has done okay in moments. Marriott is okay when he's fit, which isn't that often. It feels like the kind of Paul Mullin Wrexham story, and maybe they have outgrown him now. He's been unable to really force his way into the side. When he has done, hasn't really looked the player that he was for them, and kind of shoots from anywhere. And then Ollie Palmer, who again is someone who I think they're kind of leaving behind. It feels like Smith is that signing of someone who, to get where they want to go, which is obviously next step is a mid-table championship side. He's a cut above what they already have, and that was shown in the first game, in the first goal. You winced when I said that.
Well,
what's wrong? I think he is. I think he's a championship striker.
Okay. There you go then. That's good.
Despite him being terrible when he played for us.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's an excellent League One striker. There's absolutely no doubt about that. it's not just him, it's just the way that Wrexham operate. I think if they get promoted, they'll be looking to buy 3 new strikers. So,
Yeah, but,
I mean,
but then
we'll see.
you say that, but then there's been an element of retaining. I've been quite surprised how, Palmer in particular, to an extent, I guess, Mullen to an extent, albeit he's been in and out this season. They've retained the faith a little bit in the players that have taken them up, albeit kind of point taken.
Yeah. If you play against them, you've got to handle long passes forward, and you've got to handle second balls. And if you don't, you're going to lose. And I think this summed it up quite well, because that first goal was, from a Northampton point of view, pretty embarrassing. I noticed that Kevin Nolan came out and said Jordan Willis, who was the one who really didn't look great, he said he woke up feeling really ill on Saturday morning, and we were like, let's just see how you go. And then I know you're a man that occasionally gets ill, and I doubt you'd enjoy trying to handle a high ball punted 80 yards in the wind.
Often when you feel ill, like looking up into the sky is like really hard. So maybe he looked up and just thought, oh God, you know what, actually that's a bad thing to do.
You want to head a big mitre football as well when you've got a bit of a headache? I don't.
Not
Jordan
really.
Willis, Jordan Willis certainly didn't.
He didn't
and came off
fancy
at
it,
half time. Yeah. Another 2-0 away win for a team in and around it. Stockport County beating Wigan by 2-0. Huge moment at 0-0 where new Wigan signing Ronan Darcy goes through. 1-on-1, shot saved by the substitute goalkeeper, Corey Adai. Not just the substitute goalkeeper, but Darcy's former teammate at Crawley Town last season. Big Corey, signed by Stockport in the summer, lost his place to Hinchliffe, but Hinchliffe got injured making a save in the first half. Adai came in, made 2 big saves for this Stockport side and might be needed for the next few weeks and beyond. They then turned it around. Well, they didn't turn it around, it was 0-0. They made it count. There you go. Great pass from Norwood into Camps, ball across, Lewis Bate smashes it in. There's something about Lewis Bate being captain of Stockport that really...
Is he captain?
Yeah, I can't tell if I love it or I hate it. Like, Norwood plays for Stockport. Hinchliffe plays for Stockport.
It's not just age, though, is it?
Wootton and Collar are, like, seriously established senior players. And Bate, what is he, 21, 22? He only signed in the summer. Armband. There you go, son. He must be one of the great orators in football. His pre-match speeches must be legendary. Let's try and get him on the pod. Does anyone know Lewis Bate? Can we get him on the pod? That'd be good. The second goal came from Stockport winning the ball high up the pitch. Good press. Quick ball into Camps. Cross in. There's Will Collar attacking crosses. That's what he does really well. George, I need a favour.
Oh God.
Can you hit that big green button for me? Marked FOTMOB Corner.
It's in the... Yeah. There you go.
This week's FOTMOB Corner looks at Stockport County, a team who've picked up 19 points from a possible 21. That's 6 wins and a draw in their last 7 in League One. Away wins at Leyton Orient, at Reading and at Wigan. A point at Bristol Rovers, concession of an injury time equaliser from a set piece, a game they should have won. Home wins against Crawley and Shrewsbury 2-0 and a 2-1 win against Barnsley. All of a sudden, Stockport are 3 points off the automatic promotion places. And all this comes after the recall of Louis Barry, who was the hottest loanee in town and probably the League One player of the season in the first half of the campaign. So I want to look quickly at Stockport County, asking the how, the why, and is it sustainable? Could they finish second in League One and make it 3 promotions in 4 seasons? Is it sustainable? I mean, yes. I feel confident in saying that this is who Stockport are. Now, I don't mean they're going to win 5 in every 6 games between now and the end of the season, but I do mean I find it very difficult to see an extended blip coming, which is often the case when a team cranks out this level of wins. It rarely lasts forever. But I believe in them. This is a very serious football team that won the National League in 21-22 with 94 points, that came 4th in League 2 the next season with 79 points, 1st in League 2 last season with 92 points, and is now 4th in League 1 with 57 points from 32 games. Now, if your maths is good, you'll know that that's 322 regular season points across 3 different divisions in 168 games, totaling 1.92 points per game in 3.5 years. They're basically hitting 2 points per game. So let's zoom in on this season, look at FOTMOB stats and data. How about this for a trio of stats? League 1, expected goals for. Stockport County first, 46.2. Shots on target per match, Stockport County first, 5.1 per match. Big chances, Stockport County first, 79 big chances. Going forward, they are brilliant at creating chances. And so it wasn't just a case, as it may have seemed watching highlights in the first half of the season, that Stockport was a good defence and then Louis Barry dribbling and scoring from range. They are excellent as a team at creating chances and scoring goals. Defensively, there's 6 teams with a better XG against number, but they still concede less than a goal per game, and only Birmingham and Huddersfield have faced fewer shots on target than Stockport this season. They've also won the ball back high up the pitch as much as anyone else, third, in fact, in League One for possession won in the final third. We saw it in their second goal against Wigan on Saturday. No Louis Barry, no problem for Stockport, because this is a team effort, and this is a team that's been built over a long period of time, not just cobbled together with star loanees. It's a great squad without him. It's been built really nicely. I love how few weaknesses this team has, both when you look at the squad on paper and you try and work out what system they're going to play. They've got basically everyone for every possible situation, every possible shape and position and role. But even on the pitch, what are their weaknesses? I genuinely don't really know. They defend their box well. They win the ball back high up the pitch. Their shape out of possession is excellent. Very hard to score against. In attack, they've got a nice mixture of, to coin a Tony Mowbray favourite expression, soldiers and artists, right? They've got soldiers, which you need. That's off-ball players or physical players. People that can disrupt opposition defenders aerially or physically. People that make good runs off the ball to stretch defences and move defences around. And they make the most of that with the artists that they have. That's passers, that's dribblers. Now, Barry was obviously the number one dribbler in the team, but Jack Diamond is not a bad option and completes about the same amount of dribbles per game as Barry without the end product to back it up that Barry had. They've got Norwood and Bate in midfield, artists, no doubt about that. Even at the back, they've got Ethan Pye, 22-year-old centre-back from the academy, who's actually their top-rated player on FOTMob this season outside of Louis Barry. His star is massively on the rise, Ethan Pye, and if you don't know about him, you need to get to know him. Really good on the ball, really comfortable, left-footed, which is always a big tick in the box. On FOTMob, if defensive numbers don't pop when compared per 90 to other centre-backs, but remember that defensive stats, particularly for centre-backs, can be quite misleading, and some of the things that get given, that you get credit for, are not necessarily always positive. They're just things that can be measured, right? Now, Pye mostly plays next to a front-footed defender, a ball winner, a Horsfall, for example, or maybe a Brad Hills now. But he's the one that mops up nicely, and there's always space for that in any team, in any back line. He's good on the ball, as I said. Ollie Norwood is Ollie Norwood. Incredible in possession. His numbers are so good. Basically the most touches in the league, the second most accurate long passes per 90. His passing range is immaculate, and it just helps. You know, you can have width from your wing backs, you can have width from your wingers, and you know that Norwood will find them every single time. He can get quality into Wootton, who's one of the best target men in this division. Defensively, yeah, he probably doesn't have the legs for the Championship anymore, but this team, this setup is perfect, allows him to thrive. And they go long into Wootton quite often, and that's not because they need to lump it, that's because it's a really good attacking ploy, because I love Wootton. He's so good, except we have to say he struggles in front of goal, and that is really easily reflected in the stats. Only 7 goals from over 10 expected. But as long as Stockport score goals, why does it matter if it's Stockport's striker that scores them? It doesn't matter at all. That's just one of 10 outfielders. And he does so much more to allow the team to create chances and score goals as a collective. Wootton, aerially, is about as good as they get at this level in terms of his defensive work and what he does out of possession. Absolutely excellent. So I just love this team, really. You've got Pye, Norwood, Bate, terrific quality on the ball. You've got off-ball players like Olafe, who's so dangerous with his speed in behind and his direct runs. Collar, who, as we saw on the weekend, so good at attacking the box late and getting on the end of crosses and scoring goals, isn't someone that's going to be that involved in build-up. That's fine. They don't need him to be. They've got that covered. Diamond is doing all right since Barry left as a dribbler. And then just a load of nice all-rounders, versatile defenders like Callum Connolly, Ibo Toure, Kyle Noyle. I think Stockport are a huge player for second spot. Because normally when we do these, teams have a bit of a drop-off. Because, as you often say, teams never win every game. So when there's a team that's won 5 and 6, it's likely that that's not going to continue. But there's something about Stockport that makes me really believe in them. And I think it's basically a completeness to their game. mixed with 3.5 years of winning, 3.5 years, if not more, of standards being set and maintained. That's what makes me love this Stockport County team, and I'm excited to see the impact they have on the League One promotion battle in the next couple of months. Download FOTMob, it's our favourite scores app. With it, you get all the scores as goals go in and so much live data, but you can also spend every hour of the day on it, analysing any EFL team or player and teams and players from across the world in the depth that we've just done on this FOTMob corner about Stockport County. A couple of 3-2s next in League One. George, tell me about Bolton. They went to Shrewsbury. They went 1-0 down. They only went and won 3-2.
Making a bit of a habit of this is Shuey. It's funny because it feels like he's very quickly resumed exactly where he left off in League One. Argyle games were often pretty balmy. They used to concede quite a lot of opportunities and they'd normally come away with all 3 points. And that's exactly what's happened against Crawley last weekend. And it's exactly what's happened here as well. Shrewsbury taking the lead. And probably deservedly so, I would say. In the first half, Shrews were the better side. I mean, they've been in really good form coming into the game, as you've spoken about a lot on the pod. And when the goal came through Vidane Oliver, his first goal for them, it was exactly what they deserved, and Bolton had yet to have a shot up to that point. Things changed at half time, and there was, as you messaged me this morning, Owen Toll was at the heart of both the first and the second goal, turning into, as you said, prime John Stones. The first, we should say that Jamal Blackman made an unbelievable save late on in the first half to keep the scores level. I would like to see an alternative angle of Owen Toll's first goal, because as good as it was to see him stepping out of defence and hit it into the bottom right-hand corner, it felt like wonder Blackman probably could and should have done better. It was funny to then see 4 minutes later Toll get back on the ball in a very similar area, and you had Bolton fans, the away fans, screaming shoot. But no, instead he just skipped onto his left foot and just played a really nicely weighted ball through to McAtee, who finished off well to make it 2-1. And it was McAtee who got the third goal as well to finish off. It was his initial shot that was saved well by Blackman. So, McAtee in decent form before Shrewsbury scored late on a consolation goal through Hull to make it 3-2. I think Shrews will feel aggrieved that they probably felt like they created enough and they could and should have been 2-0 up at half time. But for Bolton, a side who under Everett, the criticism I think a lot of this season were the bad performances being too plentiful and not being able to get over the line consistently. For them to come back from behind in 2 consecutive games, albeit against 2 sides currently in the relegation zone, I think is a pretty perfect way for the Schumacher reign to take it off with a really positive start. And McAtee is someone who should score a lot of goals and has done here. It was a relatively tight game, and I think Bolton will need to probably exert a little bit more control in games if they're going to make this last and force their way into the playoff picture. But you can't argue with 6 points.
Yeah, I'm feeling a bit contrary because I'm pretty unimpressed with the way that they're playing, trying to put aside just the scoreline. I think being 3-1 down at home to Crawley is bad, frankly. Controversial statement, but I think that's bad. And yes, it's great that they came back and it bodes well. And there's connection with the fans, and Schumacher will make a big difference. But he called their first half here rubbish. I don't really think that reflects very well on him setting up this team to play. They rely on a strike from range from their centre-back. They rely on a nice assist from the same centre-back 5 minutes later. If Toll, pulls his calf 2 minutes before the 55th minute, whenever it was, and doesn't do that, I'd be interested to know how this game plays out. But certainly pretty unconvinced in their performances in the last 2 games. Leyton Orient won 3-2 against Lincoln, and the headline is that Ethan Galbraith got a perfect hat-trick of assists. The first one was a headed flick to Perkins at the back stick, slotted in. The second one was a square pass with his left foot after he had taken 3 defenders out the game with one of the great dummy shots of the season, slotted by Perkins. So far, so Orient 2025, going ahead at home, winning football matches. Except, end of the first half, Lincoln had a set piece, shot was saved, parried to Monsma, who fired home the rebound, 2-1 at the break. In the second half, set piece from Lincoln, shot saved, James Collins with the rebound, 2-2. And Whelan said afterwards it was probably the first time in a while where they've, there's been a challenge to Leyton Orient. They've had it quite easy at home, apart from the game against Stockport that they lost and were obviously second best. They've had it pretty comfortable. And they dealt with it, in fairness. They got an injury time winner, Galbraith with a cross from the right, his right foot getting an assist after his left foot and his head had done the same, finished by Kelman. And it's 9 wins in 14 for Orient. It really is quite something. If you're being really, it's not even critical, if you're really analysing it as granular as possible, only one of those 9 wins was against a top 6 team, and that was Barnsley, who were in the top 6 at the time. They're now 10th. So how's this for a run? Orient's next 3 games: at Wrexham Tuesday night, at Bolton Saturday, at Birmingham next midweek, and then at home to Charlton on the 1st of March. It's going to be fascinating because they are playing magnificently well. They just haven't really had the opportunity to play against a top team, apart from Stockport, where they were clearly second best. I can't wait to see how those games play out. Reading 2, Rotherham 1 was all about the ref, and Steve Evans' comments about the ref take the headlines. There were disallowed goals. There were goals given that probably shouldn't have been given. For what it's worth, because I don't like detailing refereeing decisions that many people listening won't have to hand and won't have, maybe not have even seen. There was a disallowed goal against Rotherham, headed home by Hugill. Bindon had gone down because Hugill had given him a little tug. It was quite a similar incident to the penalty that Reading were awarded in injury time that was scored by Harvey Nibbs, given away by Zach Jules, again for a little pull of the shirt. I don't have a massive problem with either of those being given as fouls, and I wouldn't have had a massive problem if they weren't either. So it's not the sort of thing that makes my blood boil. There were 2 incorrect offside decisions, and it's easy to say that when you're able to pause incidents and watch them back multiple times. Reading's first goal shouldn't have stood. The initial shot that I think came back off the post, Wareham was in an offside position, should have been flagged. And Rotherham scored a goal that was actually an own goal that was, again, flagged for offside and disallowed because the referee thought that Nombe had scored it. But he hadn't. It had come off the defender. And again, it was an incorrect decision. So you can see why Rotherham feel very, very hard done by. They concede a goal that shouldn't have been. They have a goal chalked off that shouldn't have been. Even outside of the penalty incidents, that's enough to nudge a tight game in Reading's favour. Harvey Nibbs is a great guy, isn't he? That's what I'd think if I was a Reading fan for sure. 11 goals this season. I saw a Reading fan tweet a meme, the old classic meme where someone says, "Thank you for saving my life." And then it's a picture of Harvey Nibbs with the caption, "I'm literally just Harvey Nibbs." But he's something to cling on to, isn't he? Because Reading are having a tough time of it off the field, as has been regularly detailed and still a massive issue. Sam Smith leaves them for Wrexham. Who's still there? His mate Harvey. His mate Harvey's just being a good guy, trying hard, playing multiple positions and roles wherever he's needed, scoring goals for Reading as they continue their playoff charge. Will, who's a Millers fan on NTT20, a legend of the squad, picked out Charlie Savage, but also the fullbacks, Garcia, the 17-year-old, and Craig, the 21-year-old, as standouts for Reading. Down at the bottom of the table, George, kind of bad news for the neutral, I'd say, in that Bristol Rovers beat Burton and Exeter beat Cambridge. Tell me about that game at the Mem.
This is what Bristol Rovers do, and it's funny. I mean, they've got 35 points this season, and we've spoken a bit how it feels like they lose a lot of games, and it kind of always feels strange they're not closer to the relegation zone for the whole campaign. But they've picked up 22 of their 35 points in just 9 games against the current bottom 6, and this was another home win. Like, you look back at their season so far, they've beaten Cambridge, Burton, Shrewsbury, Peterborough and Cobblers all at home, drawing 0-0 with Crawley, and they've beaten Burton and Cambridge away from home. The only game they haven't either won or drawn was a 3-2 defeat at Peterborough back in September, when Peterborough were just not a bottom 6 side. This is why they're currently away from the relegation zone, and this was a big pressure game, this, because Burton, aside coming into it, who have been in really good form, who under Gary Bowyer have kicked on and are looking to make a proper stab at securing their League One position for next season. I still think have a decent chance of doing so, looking to chase down Bristol Rovers, who came into this not in particularly good form under a new manager as well, who's improved them from an attacking perspective. And, you know, I guess came into this off the back of the 3 consecutive home games where they drew with Stockport last time due to a late goal and beat Peterborough. But the 7 points from those 3 games, you think should set them apart from the rest. And this was a pretty decent display from them as well. The opening goal coming from Chris Martin. Burton then, as you'd expect, came back into the game, and when Tavares, not a player you necessarily expect to score a header, but with kind of the second ball from a corner, flicked it in, you probably thought Burton were gonna get a point. But Luke Thomas and Nigel Hutchison got the late goals to get the 3 points for Bristol Rovers, which, yeah, as we say, is important for them, and crowns off and caps off a very big week for them and puts them in a pretty dominant position. And now, as this kind of League One relegation battle takes shape, and we've spoken a lot about Crawley. They only picked up a point against Wycombe, albeit a decent point. Talk a lot about Shrewsbury, who lose. Talk a lot about Cambridge, who lost, as we'll say, as talk about now, and Burton losing too. After kind of a few weeks in a row of these teams making ground on those above them, this feels like a week that's gone to those who are trying to keep their head above water, and Bristol Rovers certainly the big beneficiary of this.
And Exeter won at Cambridge. Poor game between quite poor teams, but huge for Exeter. They'd won only 3 of their last 19 league games. They'd lost 12 of them. And boy, does the relegation zone get closer and closer when that's your form line. McGuinness with a big header. And Ryan Loft missing a big header in the first half was probably the most basic way of analysing this game. There were a few more half chances squandered for both teams. But Exeter saw it out. It's huge, huge, huge for them. They are now 7 points above Crawley in the relegation zone, with 4 teams between them and the zone as well. They just need to get through this and get to the end of the season. But Garry Monk doesn't have that chance. He's been sacked by Cambridge. He's been Cambridge United manager for just under a year. He replaced Neil Harris, who had left them for Millwall after a decent short spell. Under Monk, Cambridge have picked up 33 points from 42 league games, a really paltry return. He leaves them bottom of the table, 8 points from safety with, 15 games to go. They won 3 in a row, having made a really slow start to the season. But that level of winning was never even close to being sustained under Monk. There were too many runs that went the other way, too many winless runs of 5-6 games or more. And I have sympathy for Monk because I think that Cambridge are up against it at this level at the moment. I don't think they have a particularly strong squad. And we've discussed before this concept of like a gravitational relegation for clubs of Cambridge's sides who, and it happens time and time again, regardless of the team name. A team wins an impressive but surprise promotion from League Two, just put together an excellent season, sometimes out of nowhere. Quite often the momentum carries them through a strong first season in League One. They're able to stay up, which was the case for Mark Bonner's Cambridge, finishing 14th. And then the difficulties come when that squad tends to break up a little bit, either be sold off to richer clubs or you just need to try and churn it because that's what you need to do. And it's difficult to do it when you don't have a big budget for the level. That's been the case for Cambridge. They haven't made any money through player sales, opting initially to just hold on to the players where possible to try and retain their status. And they've done that 3.5 seasons in League One. They stayed up by the skin of their teeth for the last 2. But it's just tough to keep it going. They're having a big review of their football operations. Sporting director Ben Strang, who's been there forever, he's gone a couple of days ago. And now Garry Monk is sacked as well. So be interesting to see who they turn to. I mean, you can normally tell when there's no leaks, because the current bookies' favourite are their last 2 managers, Mark Bonner and Neil Harris, which, if you go through a huge review of your football department that leads to the sporting director leaving and the manager leaving, to then turn to one of your former managers would be an interesting process, that's for sure. I think it's unlikely. And I'd love to just say to Cambridge fans, well, why not drop down to League Two, get back to winning games, get the good vibes going again. And from Championship to League One, I sometimes believe that, and it's something you talk about quite a lot. But we know that League One to League Two relegation can be really difficult, and all too often teams tumble right to the bottom half of League Two. So it's a tough spot. It's a tough spot for them at the moment.
But it's also just strange timing to part company with your sporting director and then 4 days later sack your manager, because now you would think he'd want the new sporting director to be in and be the one making the decision and be the person choosing the next manager. If they go and now appoint a manager and then do a recruitment drive for a sporting director, the chances are there'll be an issue relatively soon between those two as well. So, I don't think it looks to me like from the outside like a great process, unless the plan is, they've decided that Monk is purely a negative, having a negative influence on the side, and they want to have anyone else in for an interim period whilst they make the necessary changes.
Couple of draws, Blackpool 3, Mansfield 3 was a bit of fun. Blackpool took the lead through Carey, and then Mansfield basically battered them away from home for 70 minutes. They were 3-1 up through Evans, had a Bacchus banger, and then a nice finish from Akins. Steve Bruce made a triple sub at half-time, And it didn't do much initially, to be honest. They didn't start the second half that well. But then, by the end, you say, yeah, good subs, Brucey, because they all combined eventually. Fletcher scored, CJ Hamilton got an assist, Gabriel got an assist, Coulson played well, having come on as well. It means they've set one of the weirdest Football League records. 8 consecutive draws at home in league football for Blackpool is apparently an all-time Football League record, which is remarkable. Their home record this season gives me a rash, George. They've played 14 home games. They've lost 2. They've won 2. And they've drawn 10. Only 2 wins at home this season for Blackpool. That is bizarre. Absolutely bizarre.
None for Brucey.
None for Brucey. Stevenage 1, Peterborough 1. Kemp with a lovely kind of number 10 classic goal, getting the ball edge of the box, defenders around him, shifting it onto his weaker foot, finding the corner with it. And Kean Hayes showed him that he's got a weaker foot as well, getting the ball on the right side of the attack, going outside and smashing it in the near post for a Peterborough draw. Frustrating for Stevenage, I think. 3 without a win now since Alex Ravel came on the pod, having got themselves in quite a good position. Disappointing couple of weeks for them. And as for Peterborough, well, having lost 10 of their last 12 away before this game, maybe a point is a good result, but they do need to start picking up some wins. And that'll do for League One.